Tonight on The Conversation.
I see the people that when I was in a bad point in my life, when I so just wanted to prove a point of I'm not, who people think I am kind of thing. The people they were, cool. They were cool, but I'm so sick of people trying to be too cool.
And I remember meeting with this terrible, she said she was a manager, and now when I think about it, in her studio apartment, which I should have been like, huh? Is that your bed? And she says, first of all, you realize you're never gonna work it this way. Wow. And I was like, really?
I did not know what I wanted to do, but I knew the woman I wanted to be. And that was an independent woman.
Losing everything does mean that it really defines what your dreams are, and it helps you in a way, gives you that passion, that determination, and realizing you have nothing to lose.
The Conversation is a totally alternative interview series with women who have a story or experience to share. We talk about everything that women talk about. Relationships, sex, kids, career, money problems, body image. We're basically talking about the universal language of women.
Here's the weird part though, is I feel I was so trained in my interviews and everything to be the all-American family, whatever. Then I realized I was so used to saying that, and then I looked at it one day and what I was saying really wasn't true anymore. I just got so set in the way of saying the same things I did when I was 12 years old. Just the same kind of thing that I realized, wow, I don't even have the relationship that I'm saying that I do. You know what I mean? And so I guess I kind of realized that it's not, my whole life isn't one giant press junket. I don't have to be smiling all the time and always have the perfect answer.
So did you feel like there was a pressure for you to create and perform coming from a family who's showbiz?
When I was younger, no, I really did want that. And now when I think about it, I always, you can't change it, you can't go back, you can't regret anything.
Best not to.
It's best not to. You'll drive yourself crazy,
Yeah,
because
crazy.
no matter what, you can't rewind as
No.
much as you want to,
No.
and as much as sometimes you want it. And there's times where I'm like, would I have actually even done that now? I might say, don't do it, because that isn't gonna be who you are. But I did, and you can't let that stop you. And one of my good friends, she says, if you let your past be your present, it's inevitably gonna be your future. And so
She's right.
I don't want that anymore, and I don't wanna feel tied to something that obviously isn't me,
And how did that free you up?
I mean, so much. I mean, through that I had to start getting into a little more independent, and so I guess I kind of just realized that I can take care of myself. And I just wanted to be in my own space where I could be my own person. My walls are black, you know what I mean? I wanted to get to a place where when you walk in, everything I love, So that's what I kind of wanted, was to be in my own little sanctuary.
What are some of the little things you do that make you feel good about you?
I think I really had a hard time learning to be alone. I hated to be alone. And that's, me and my mom are always, we say generational sin. That's kind of what we always say, the bad stuff that you learn, that you see. If you really are connected with someone, you kind of pick up their traits, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And my mom hates that too. She hates being alone. She used to always have to have a project. And then I just started really enjoying being alone. I think it's because I had to smile so much and I had to say so much of the same thing. It's I finally just wanted to go inside and be like, what do I really think about this? Do I really think that, or am I just trained to say that? Or have I said it for so many years now that that's what people expect me to say, so now I say it so I don't have to be creative and say something else? But I guess I really had to learn how to be alone, and now I love it. I love being by myself. I thought when I would get my own place, whatever, I'd have people staying with me all the time. I try to kick people out by 10 o'clock so I can just sit on the couch with my dogs and watch TV,
Has it been confusing for you, as someone who's, transitioning from being this young girl into being a young woman? And it's a natural progression to start connecting with our sexuality.
For me, what I do, it's that's not the point. You're not sitting there trying to be sexy. If people find that and find you sexy, take it as a compliment. You know what I mean? And then people look at it to so the wrong way, especially if you're young. It's no, this is just who I am. And thank you for thinking I'm sexy. You know what I mean? People are so scared of seeing a woman being this is who I am. You're not gonna change it, And if you're a woman, you did not sing about sex. And now, if that's not what you're singing about, if that's not your entire image, you won't get played.
So that's the duality, right? That's the mixed message that, again, we were talking about a little bit, which is that sex is such a currency to succeeding on a mass level, right? So if you sexualize in any way, if you sexualize yourself in any way, it's applauded and also you're pulled down at the same time.
Right. That's a recent kind of experience as well, more than, I think the first thing, it was like the last season of my show, I put out I Can't Be Tamed, which even just the title of that, for a woman to say that she can't be tamed, that's of all people in the world, my face saying I can't be tamed, when that's really all people wanted to do, that I think proves how sexist people, still really are and judgmental. And it is the whole thing of saying, be sexy, but our way or no.
Yeah, with conditions.
Yeah.
Women are not really encouraged to have a voice when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
And a lot of young girls don't know that they have the right to say, actually, this is a mutual reciprocation. It's not just about your pleasure, it's about mine too.
I was just talking about this at dinner last night, and the girls that really base how much they're worth on the sexual favors that they can do for somebody. And that makes me really sad, because sex actually is really beautiful. It's like the only way that we create, and it's the only way that the world keeps going. So it's ignorant to make it, not talk to it, talk to your kids about it, or make it seem as magical and as cool as it actually is.
Yeah.
They have a TV, they know what sex is. So everyone knows, so educate them, let them know that they wouldn't be here without it, and it is a beautiful thing, and it is magic, and it is when you connect with somebody, and it isn't how much you're worth. Your worth isn't based on that. Your worth is based on, how you feel about yourself.
It sounds like you've always had a pretty good sense of yourself, though, even if you didn't, honor it.
But I've lost it a lot. There's times that you hear what you should be so much that you lose, what you actually are. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and it's a really
hard.
painful place.
But it's for anybody. It's not just for entertaining. I just have it in such a different way, but,
And by the way, any young girl who's going between age 12 and age 16, for me, that was an incredibly hard time.
Yeah.
And I never met a girl who's in that time frame, that age range, who isn't having a difficult time with that transition.
Yeah.
From being a girl to a young woman. And that's a really difficult time for every single male and female.
Yeah.
It's not even women, it's just people.
Yeah.
And
I think, I don't know, I think I'm at such a different stage. I just kind of want to go, some girls that I see, and I see what they want and what is the most important thing in their life. I just want to go shake them and say, wake up. The world is so much greater. Do you know what I mean? Go, be by yourself. Go meditate. Go spend 10 minutes, really looking at yourself. And I don't know if you're going to like it, Or and I always say, if I met me, would I really like me? And I always ask myself that. Because I know, would you really want to be your friend? It's almost like, I always say, we kind of judge people and we put people down about the things that we really don't like about ourselves.
Absolutely.
Same with the people that you choose to have in your life. The people that you surround yourself with, that determines a lot.
They're a reflection of you.
Because I see the people that when I was in a bad point in my life, when I so just wanted to prove a point of I'm not, who people think I am kind of thing, the people they were, cool, they were cool, but I'm so sick of people trying to be too cool.
Cool is
Cool
overrated.
is so dumb. And, I'm so sick of people trying to be too cool. And like I said, too much of, one thing is so bad, where you're so trying to figure out, who do I want people to think I am? It's just be who you are, and then that is where your style will come, and your attitude, and your spirituality, and your sexuality, and everything will come. Because then you just, it's coming from that place of love, which I had to learn. I was in one of the biggest arguments of my life with my mom. It was right before my 17th birthday. I was being super dramatic, hitting the staircase forever and cried in the middle of the Four Seasons. I was just having this big argument. And I was writing my last album at the time, and the guy said, if you come from a place of love, this is all gonna work out. But if you're just trying to one up who can hurt each other the most, because my mom was going through her own separate problems and I was going through my own separate thing. And if you just keep trying to go, well, you're doing this and justify each other's, actions, you're not gonna get anywhere. It all has to come from a place of love.
Suddenly, everybody went to see Bridesmaids, and people were suddenly talking about you.
I'm still in the process of growing up, so I still like to try on different identities.
I had a few rebellious phases.
Punk, goth, conservative clothing,
blonde streaks in the hair. It was very preppy.
I went from tomboyish straight to girly.
I went from like really preppy cheerleader, student council rep, like all of these things like tennis, and then like the next year I was like intensely goth. I was like a horrible gothic person. It was really bad because I like looked really menacing and then was still really chatty.
Did it freak your parents out?
Totally.
They
My
thought,
mom
like,
was just
what's going on with you?
Well, especially such a flip, because like one year I had like Ada beads and like a polo on. And that was my picture.
Where's
and
our
the next
daughter
year was like,
gone?
I'd shaved off like half of my head and this part was blue and they were like, ha, ha.
But what was your mindset during that time? Was it just about self-expression?
You just keep trying things and nothing feels probably real because it's not. You're like putting on crazy outfits and being like, this is what I'm about. But
Nope, that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, actually. There was suddenly everybody went to see Bridesmaids, and people were suddenly talking about you, like, you know, and you've obviously had a career well before Bridesmaids.
Right.
You
It's
know?
like, when did you get to town? 20 years ago?
And it's amazing to me that you've obviously been like consistently working and working and working, and then something tipped.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Changes things, and especially I have little kids, so I don't mind. I never mind people saying stuff. I mean, it's been really positive. I worry a little bit about it, like if I have my kids with me.
Yeah.
Which that hasn't happened yet. I think maybe people are a little more mindful of it, but
Well,
like
they don't really expect to maybe see you at the park, like pushing your kids on the swings.
Right.
You know?
Which I am. In a bad yoga pant.
I read somewhere that you went for an audition and that you were pregnant with your second child, or you were pregnant at the time, right?
Both. I got jobs both pregnancies. Like I waddled in like a weeble, and was just so pregnant. And I was like, oh, great. If it happens, whatever.
And kind of cool that you went with it. You were like, yep, I'm pregnant. I'm probably as big as I'm ever going to be right now.
You're looking at it. Yeah, it's something, I don't know, I think there's so many weird, you know, issues that you have as a woman, and we're all just kind of nuts about how we're supposed to look. And I don't know, I think something happened like after having kids. I think there's only so much stuff you can worry about. You wish certain things were different, but on the list of like, okay, people are healthy, we have a good family, like I'm nuts about my husband. It's like, yes, at some point I'm gonna be better on my elliptical, but you know, it gets further down. And
The priority scale.
yeah.
For myself, I had this weird notion that if I didn't look a certain way, that I would never succeed. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like I was convinced that, you know, just 10 pounds lighter will really, my talent, my skill, my years of work really don't mean anything compared to the extra 10 pounds that I need to lose for actually me to be successful in life.
I mean, I remember I was, I think it was in New York. I was probably 22. I think it was like a size 6. And I remember meeting with this terrible, she said she was a manager, and now when I think about it, in her studio apartment, which I should have been like, huh? Is that your bed? Like, and she says, first of all, you realize you're never gonna work at this weight. Wow. And I was like, really? And at least I had somewhere in my brain, I had the sense to be like, I think you're crazy. Like, even if I believe that, I was like, you're probably right, but like, in general, you're crazy.
How do you maintain your sanity?
By not believing that. I think you keep your sanity by being like, you're crazy. That's not actually true. I'm always mystified by the weird thing of perfection. In shows, in movies, in media, it's like in every magazine, it's always this weird, I mean, it's like you make a joke of it now, but it's still like in movies, like the rollover and it's like your perfect dewy makeup. It's like, I mean, I sleep in my makeup, and sometimes I'm like, not too bad the next morning, but it's like, you know, it's in no way do I wake up fresh and dewy, but I just think if the only things you ever show in terms of, you know, different female characters is that they're perfect, there's nothing to relate to. And then young girls see that stuff and they're supposed to be perfect in every way, and I just think it's like they're everyone's focusing on a visual. Like, no matter how bionic someone looks, it's like, if they're really interesting, if they have a point of view, and if they're doing something cool, it's like, that's so much more fascinating to me, and I think to everybody.
And I mean, my concern, I have 3 children, and I have two of them are daughters. And I really feel like, where do they look? Who do they look to for inspiration?
Yeah. My oldest daughter, Viv, who's 4, came home from school and literally is like, I lost her. She's gone into some weird princess world. All of the games are about the princess, and I'm like, cool, let's go and, you know, like, we try to make up these stories because we always tell like weird long stories and we go back and forth. And hers keeps now, out of nowhere, is like, and then we get married. Like, and then you run the kingdom. She's like, he runs the kingdom.
Oh.
And you hear Ben from the other room, my husband's like, she can run the kingdom. I mean, almost every single one, it's like, she was nothing, she came across this prince, he saved her, and now he tells her what to do. The end, and it's happy. I'm like, that's not even a story. That's like, are you kidding me? Like, give me some weird fairy tale-ish thing, but we've got a couple books that are gonna magically disappear. We just take things and they can't be found.
Yeah, and you know, and I think it's sometimes hard for everybody to really understand where this point of view comes from. You know, with not wanting our little girls to grow up thinking that they have to, like you said, be princesses and get married to the guy to be happy.
I don't ever want to say anything negative about, you know, finding somebody and loving that person, and it's like great. But also, if you end up, you know, on a weird boat in Alaska because that's what you're into, and like, that's great too. I just want to keep all the options and opportunities completely wide open. Somebody needs to come up with like let's reinvent like a modern fairy tale where the girl is not like brushing her hair and waiting for like the perfect kiss.
I mean, that's one of the things that we talk a lot about, you know, getting to know yourself and, you know, improving your self-esteem. And
I hate the word self-esteem.
Why?
Because just the word, it sounds so victim-y already.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
If you can't be happy with yourself, you can't be happy with somebody else.
There's something that you can do today to get closer to your goal.
What other people think of you is none of your damn business.
I mean, if I have to give one advice to anyone, ever, is the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself. The relationship with yourself is the most important thing. And so you should really never lose yourself. People lose themselves in drugs. People lose themselves in fear. People lose themselves. We have so many opportunities to lose
Well, people
yourself.
want to lose themselves because they're not comfortable
But
in their own skin.
the truth is, and I can only really talk about women, but I have never met a woman who is not strong. Never. But sometimes, but sometimes they don't show it because a brother, a father, religion, circumstances, or sometimes they're just insecure themselves. And then a tragedy happens. Well, let me tell you, when tragedy comes, the strength comes out. So you may as well bring out the strength before the tragedy hits, which means you have to accept yourself, you have to look at yourself critically, the good, the bad. You have to be strict with yourself to some degree.
Discipline.
But never you can lose yourself. Troubles really happen when you lose yourself.
All of the things you're describing are not easy tasks. To not abandon ourselves. Look how many women every day are abandoning themselves.
I know. The second advice would be fear is not an option.
Why do you feel that?
My mother taught me that. My mother was, when she was 20, she was in a concentration camp. She was in Auschwitz. She came back, she weighed 49 pounds. So she survived, and she wasn't supposed to survive, but she did survive. She wasn't supposed to, she got married, she wasn't supposed to have a child, and then I was born. So my birth was already a miracle. And so my mother never wanted me to be a victim. Never wanted me to be afraid of anything.
You know, for me personally, I feel that it's so important for a woman to have her own money. It means that we have choices of who we want to be with,
Totally.
what we want to do.
It's very important. It's the most, it's the most important. You cannot depend. I think women should have children, absolutely. It's part of who we are. Our bodies are made to have children. We should have children. But I think that it's very important that a woman has a separate identity outside the family. Absolutely. There's no question. There's no question. No question.
How have you always felt that way?
Always. Always.
Why?
I don't know, because I don't want to depend on a father or a husband. I don't want to.
Did you have a present father?
I had a lovely, wonderful, loving, super, unconditionally loving father.
Wow, what's that like?
You know what it is like? It's like you want to go away.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't have that,
but it made me very secure with men, I must say. I was always secure with men, and I think it's because my father loved me so much that
You didn't have that need to be met the whole time.
No, I'm not needy.
That's a good place to be in, to not be
Sometimes
needy.
you pretend, as a woman, you pretend to be needy.
Oh God, I have to pretend not to be needy. Yeah, like I'm the other way. So yeah, your relationships are really interesting, because I would love to be the kind of woman who designed my own marriage and who said, I'm going to create my marriage to be in the shape that I want it to be.
You don't design your marriage. It doesn't happen that way. You design your life, but you don't design your life like, okay, you design it and that's going to want to be. No, nothing is ever still. You go, you have a vague idea of what you'd like, but then you may turn to another direction. But I think you design your life every day. I think you need space so that you can think and things are clear. If you're always with a lot of things around
it's cluttered.
you have no
There's
time.
no space.
Yeah.
And when you take the space, then things rise up. So how do you create that space for yourself with the demands on your life?
Solitude, very important. Solitude, you have to get pieces, moments of solitude. Sometimes it's when you drive. For people, be alone in the car, drive, that's solitude. It's good, it's important. Sometimes you have to just lock yourself in the bathroom. I don't know, but it's important. Go for a walk.
That's one of the things that we talk a lot about, getting to know yourself and, improving your self-esteem and...
I hate the word self-esteem.
Why?
Because even just the word, it sounds so victim-y already. But to me, it should be just self. Forget about esteem.
You're right. Let's call it just self,
Yeah.
okay? That's what we're going to call it from now on. So what are the things that you have done, throughout your life? What are the constants that you've done so that you've maintained a friendship with yourself?
That's a good question. I talk to myself. I shouldn't, but I do. Sometimes I'm in a hotel room and I come home and I say, "Hi, honey."
Yeah.
I wink at myself and I go to the bathroom and I see myself in the mirror. I say hi. I enjoy my company, and I trust I trust myself. I trust my
intuition
judgment.
and your instinct.
Yeah. That's why I like things. I like to do things. I'm a hiker. I like to swim. I like to hike. I like to do things that I do with myself or with nature. Nature is super important also.
Let's talk a bit about business and finance, because that's an area that I personally am really interested in. And again, I think people aren't really teaching, girls and women about how to start a business. And
listen, in my case, I have nothing to teach. In that case, I started by accident. All I know, I did not know what I wanted to do, but I knew the woman I wanted to be. And that was an independent woman. And that is what I did. I found a door open, an opportunity. I worked for an Italian manufacturer. He liked me. And then I learned everything about printing, everything about knitting, everything about everything. And then my boyfriend came from Italy. We met, we got engaged, but it was an engagement. I didn't even believe in the, it was like that. Then he goes back to America, and I stay in Italy. This Italian man had a Maserati. We go from factory to factory. I was nauseous. I thought it was the Maserati, but I was pregnant.
Uh-oh.
And so I thought, oh no, this is terrible. I'm gonna get married to this attractive, good-looking, hot, rich prince, right? The catch of Europe. And everybody is gonna think that I did it on purpose. I got pregnant on purpose, so I was terrible. I said, I don't want it, I don't want it. But my mother said, listen, you're engaged, you have to make the decision together, whatever. And he said, no, we get married. And at first I said, really? And so I got married. So I said to this Italian manufacturer, I am pregnant, I'm getting married, I'm moving to America, and therefore, but I want to be independent. Will you allow me to make some samples from your factory, and I will try to sell them in America? And he said, okay. And so when the factory would close at night, I would work with the pattern maker, and then I made a few samples, then I came to America, and blah, blah, and then it all happened together. At the same time, I had 2 children, I started to work, I moved to America, all at the age of 22.
Wow. That's like baptism by fire.
Yeah. And until then, my mother used to say she thought I was lazy.
What are your vices?
I'm not afraid of a Guinness.
I have no vice.
Oh, we must get you one.
My primary motivation is to do everything I can for my daughter to get her to the point where she can do everything for herself.
My biggest motivator is myself and my happiness.
Fashion.
Career.
My children, of course.
It's my overall goal in life that motivates me. I kind of just stick that in front of me and try to run after it.
Loss can be a great motivator. Losing everything does mean that it really defines what your dreams are, gives you that passion, that determination, and realizing you have nothing to lose.
You are now editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar for how many years?
10.
That is a long time.
Yes.
How did you go from being a young woman in England to ending up being editor of this huge American publication?
Well, I've always loved fashion and beauty, and I studied fashion at college, but sadly, in the first year of college, my mother got cancer and sadly died. And then, as soon as I left college, I found myself only being out in the industry for 18 months, only to find out my father got cancer, and I made such a decision at that time, which was incredibly difficult. I decided to give everything up and go home to Derbyshire, where I come from, and nurse him till he died. And at the time, it felt like giving everything up, but actually, it was the best decision I ever made.
Why?
Because time is so precious. And when you love someone and you want to do the best for them, it's an investment which will come back many, many times.
Did you go through a period of grief, or did you just put all of that into refocusing and finding a career?
I think a lot of people, when they grieve, they actually find some other way to work through it. And for me, work was the answer. Losing my parents, I really feel like in some way it gave me the freedom to be able to go after my dreams. And it seems so impossible, but I came back from Derby to London on a bus with two of my closest friends. I said, I think I'm going to do a fashion magazine now and you can come and work on it. And so literally there's nothing like taking action. I got off the bus, went straight to a public phone box and called the head of IPC magazines, which is like a huge magazine group in England. And he was the head of the luxury division. And I called him up and said, I would love to meet with you. I've got an idea for a fashion magazine.
How did you get through to him?
Well, I think it's fate and it's luck. You know, I often look back at my story and think, this is a fairy tale. How was that possible? Yeah. But it's, if you put yourself out there, it's amazing how people can be receptive. And it turned out when I went to meet him the next day, he was really open. I think he was so surprised that someone was really enthusiastic and had such a focused idea that he gave me the money to be able to produce a dummy magazine.
Right away after your meeting?
Exactly after the meeting. And then I was faced with the idea that I'd never worked in magazines before. How did you actually produce one? And,
oh my gosh.
But I always a great believer in starting at the top. I really think that focusing on a career and working your way up is way, way, way overestimated. I think it's much better to know exactly what you want and start at the top. And I've been in a very luxurious position of 25 years later, I'm still an editor-in-chief.
You know, I think it's often people get caught up in an idea that they have to go through a specific process to succeed. And in truth, there's many different ways to succeed, as your story has just explained. For me too, the first job as I got as a photographer, I didn't know how to use a light meter, but I saw the picture in my head.
I think it's so important to know to listen to yourself. I think so often people get so sidetracked with other people's opinion. And if you're really sure of a decision, just don't get sidetracked.
Don't waver.
Just focus and to yourself be true. Because at the end of the day, we only have one life and it's up to you how you use yours.
Let's go back to when you got this opportunity to create the magazine that you had so tenaciously sold to this guy. How did you then go about fulfilling that? Because I would assume one of the things that you're good at doing is saying, I need help with this. You know what you're doing in this department, come with me.
Well, I was incredibly naive. And so I just thought, oh, I'm going to get to work with the best creative director in the world.
You probably did though, right?
Well, I looked up Neville Brody, who is still considered to be one of the world's greatest graphic designers. And I called him up and said, I have an idea for a magazine. You're the best of the best. I want to work with you.
But it is extraordinary that people who were so successful in their field were open and receptive to someone who was unproven, never heard of. That's a rare thing.
Completely.
So what do you think it was about you that allowed people to say, yeah, I'll do it?
I think it's because I was very focused. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I just needed people's help to be able to produce that vision. And I think it's because I'd done my research and I had found myself as wanting to do fashion, and I was a terrible fashion designer. And I think knowing when you're not good at something and knowing when you are good at something is an art form. And normally, if you're good at something, it's incredible. People respond to that.
Yeah.
And if you're bad at it, you can really tell.
They respond to that too.
I'm afraid they do.
And I know that you really supported publishing stories about issues that people weren't really talking about.
And this is another good example of when the world is telling you one thing, and in fact, your gut says, no, no, we must persevere. When I first started the British edition of Marie Claire, we were really proud of the investigative journalism and talking about stories of women in the world in different cultures and different countries and really listening to their voices. But at the time, this had never been done before in a mainstream fashion magazine.
Yeah.
And so all my bosses were saying, that's a really good magazine you've produced. If only you could take out all those international women's voices, it'd be really successful.
Wow.
But of course, that was the thing that made it successful.
So what do you do in the face of adversity when people, I guess it was your bosses, right?
Right.
At the publishing company were like, you know what, you should get rid of those stories. How do you know when to stand your ground and say, I know that you're my bosses over here, but I feel really strongly about this and I'm gonna stick with it.
It's instinct and willing to lose everything. I think this is key, is to be fearless, because to take risks, calculated risks of course, but if you're true to yourself, what risk is there really? I mean, you've got to live with yourself.
But you have to know yourself to be able to be true to yourself, and a lot of people aren't that clear.
To me, I always listen to what my instinct's telling me. The biggest mistakes I've ever made are when I've ignored what I know to be true in my heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true for many women. So often we get distracted. But if you really, really know, you really have to be strong. And sometimes you have to accept that it isn't a popularity contest, that you have to be bold and you have to take those risks. And if you do, the rewards will be great.
What is your favorite sex position?
What?
You don't like this conversation.
Do I remember?
What do you lie about?
Nothing that I would admit to here.
Sometimes I lie about how comfortable I am in my body.
What do I lie about?
Yeah.
Oh, so much.
Nothing. Having a call on the other line.
I don't lie as much as I'm very dramatic.
Sometimes I lie about my age.
Mostly probably to my kids, which maybe sounds terrible.
I'm a very bad liar. If I'm lying, I just ramble on and on and on.
They're lies to, like, you know.
Protect someone from themselves.
Yes. Sure.
What do you lie about?
I never, ever lie. I have ways sometimes of telling the truth.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Terrible, terrible movies.
Really raunchy horror films.
There's a dance team from Indiana coming to New York. Like, I'm so in it.
Shopping.
Black chocolate.
What is your guilty pleasure?
I don't think any pleasure should be guilty.
I love you, Glenda. What are your vices?
I thought it was really funny, but I'm not gonna say it.
Relationships, men.
Shopping.
I'm not afraid of a Guinness. Enough Guinnesses that I think, it was a great idea. It was a cigarette.
What is my vice? I have no vice.
Oh, we must get you one.
A glass of wine at the end of the day.
Just one?
No.
Drinking. Yeah. Not gonna lie about that one.
To just flop.
What does vice mean?
A vice of mine is shoes.
That's not a vice. You like shoes.
My biggest vice, chicks.
What is your favorite sex position?
What?
My husband calls it the jackhammer.
You don't
Not
like this
like that.
conversation.
Pretty much any position that I'm getting sex.
My husband will kill me, no.
Do I remember?
I was brought up British, so I never talk about things like that.
Glenda has requested to not have the sex question because she's British.
I don't think it's something you can actually vocalize.
Missionary. Hi, Mom.
Doggy style.
Can you imagine if it just meant, no, I don't have sex?
Do I have to answer that?
And lastly, what would you tell your 14-year-old self?
God. I think I would tell her that those friends that make you feel skittish are not worth it. And also not be so hard on mom and dad that they're great. Yeah. That's a toughie. I would like to have that conversation.
Love yourself for who you are and don't compromise for anyone.
I think my 14-year-old self was probably a more self-assured person than I am at 34. So I would be more curious in what she has to tell me, actually.
It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world till there's no more pulse. You know what I mean? It's like you've got to keep going.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going.
I would say, go for it.
I can do anything.
I would say, enjoy the journey.
for me, I think I'm starting to write, and I actually get to put out there what I think is funny and what I think is a good story. And then I'm also willing to take that some people won't like it, and then some people will love it. But it's like, I think when you can actually do what you really love to do, if it's a little play somewhere, if it's a photo, or if it's anything, I think just if you can somehow do what you want and do a really good job at it, I think that's pretty successful.
It's so difficult to even suggest to me that I can't always achieve what I want right now. But
I get it.
sometimes that is the reality. But time has taught me to be patient and flexible, and I have to realize that maybe it wasn't meant to be right now, but that doesn't mean it can't be next month or next year. And it's inevitable, you get there in the end.
You know, I know women look at me and just say, why doesn't she do anything to her face? I know people say that, and I know they think that, and I understand that they do that, but I have made that choice. My eyes are my soul. The other day I saw a flower, a faded rose, and it was very faded, and it was very brown, and very rolled, and all of that. But I thought, you know what? It's still beautiful.
There's no one that I look at that is so great and that I want to be, you know, because I just want to be me. There's a reason that I'm here and in this body and look this way and sound this way and think this way. I don't think to contribute something you have to be, you know, the richest and the prettiest and the whatever. It's amazing what we can do, you know, and the power of our minds and just putting stuff out there. At the end of my life, I hope my book is really, really interesting. Full of chapters and interesting and make you cry and make you laugh and, you know, take you on like a full journey.
Hi, sexy. I see your wiener.
I know, I'm trying to crop his pee-pee out.
Hi. Okay. You're just editing me. I'll ramble, you edit.
Yes, ramble.
Oh, we will feel very free. We will make out.
We can totally make out. That would actually be kind of an amazing image.
Not lifetime.
You were one of the people that our entire team was like, we have to talk to her. Sorry to put that much kind of pressure on you.
It's gonna go downhill from here.
But
then I just freeze.